Welcome back, WNST, Towson, Baltimore, and Baltimore Positive. We have picked up the game around here. March Madness. We've got opening day. It's almost like, I don't want to say there was no pandemic, but it's almost like we're getting through the pandemic. I've been chasing this guy for 52 weeks now. I think at the beginning of the pandemic, I was going to call John Ourand and say, John, how's the pandemic going to affect sports? Now, a year later, because we haven't talked, we feel like we're coming out of this thing, but boy, oh boy, I think the pandemic had a hell of an effect and has had a hell of an effect on sports. Changed so much, John, that I don't just talk sports anymore. I've branched out. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing great. There's a light finally at the end of the tunnel here, Nestor. It feels like, the vaccine is getting out. You're starting to get all these teams saying that they can get fans back into the stadium. How great is that? I've been watching some of the basketball games, the Big Ten tournament that was just going on. They had little pockets of fans in there, and you could hear them, and it just like adds to the whole game. I mean, I'm the media reporter for SBJ, as you know. And like for TV, it makes such a better TV show just having like a roar of the crowd or just having crowd shots that you can hit. And I was just watching it, unbelievable, not believing that it's been a full year, man. It's been a full year without it. I missed it. It's great to see. It's great. Even more importantly, it's great to hear just, the fans in the stands.
Well, it's great to have you on the Zoom. First things first. I mean, I've never really Zoomed with you. You've sat next to me many times at Super Bowls and like that. But when you get someone on Zoom, not only do you get their fake background pictures of Camden Yards and, the hospital. This is from a year ago when we had the hearts for the hospital and hope and all that. So I put that up. But you come at this honestly. You're almost one of us. And I do think it's interesting. You and I are sort of the same age, same era, that if you grew up in your household today, you might not be an Oriole fan. You might not be a Raven fan. You got the hots for the Wizards and the Caps and Maryland. You have all – I got my Maryland Pizza John's hat out here, for everybody on the east side over in Essex. But you kind of come at most of the same teams we have. But it's from a generation ago where things are a little different if you grew up in your household now, right?
My daughters just told me, because I grew up, I didn't have a team. I grew up in D.C. We didn't have a baseball team. So, of course, I adopted the Orioles. Back in the 70s, they were winning. They were the model franchise.
Well, you're not old enough for Senators either, like me, right? I was born in 68. The Senators, to me, are something on a black-bordered 71 baseball card that kind of went away. I had no recollection of the Senators.
None whatsoever. I'm a year older than you are. I was born in 67. And my daughter just told me, and she told me about like 5-6 years ago, she goes, Dad, why are you rooting for the Orioles? Like, we have the Nationals down the road. And I was like, for me, it's, big tradition. Like, I got to root for the black and orange no matter what. And
even if the hat's not black and orange, what the hell color's that hat, man? When you got that, it was as black as my shirt, right?
These were the old batting practice caps back in like the year 2000, 2001 or so. So I love it though. You can't buy new hats. You have to stick with the old ones, right?
Well, it's got a little Oscar Madison feel to it, other than the Mets logo on it. John Ourand covers all things media deals for Sports Business Journal. He's been there forever. He's been a great partner for us over the years at saying hello at various things and learning things about the media business. Let's start at the top, right? Because we can go through the Ravens or the Orioles. I can go through Camden Yards and me, yelling about the term of a 2-year lease deal and what's going to happen. But globally, you have been on a big story with the NFL and money and where the money's going in media. And I specifically for our purposes in Baltimore right here, right now, when Eric DeCosta has to figure out a Lamar Jackson deal after Jerry Jones gives Dak Prescott $40 million a year. And this is, don't worry, fellas, in 2024, we'll have all that new money floating in here. You're the one covering all that new money. And I'm the one saying to my wife, hey, if we sell the condo and move, are we really going to get cable TV the next place we go? I mean, do we really need cable TV? And all of this is so speculative. I've always felt like it was a tight wire act. And I'll tell you what, John Angelos and the Angelos boys, they've done a hell of a job of lining their pockets with that massive money while crying poor at this point. So I'm not crying for the broadcasters, but I am trying to figure out where this thing's going. And I know Eric DeCosta kind of is too, to guess as to where these salaries are going.
You brought up the NFL, and the NFL deal is going to be really a traditional media deal, Nestor, where they're doing deals with CBS, NBC, Fox, ESPN. They're going to take Thursday Night Football and put it on Amazon. I view that almost as more of a test. They're trying to seed one of these big tech companies.
Yeah, they've been testing Thursday Night Football for 25 years.
For how long? Exactly. And that's still what they're going to be doing.
It's a terrible test. It sucks. It's awful, but let's keep testing it.
The deal that didn't get as much press as the NFL deal, but that I think is just the wave of the future is the NHL deal that they just announced with ESPN, and it is everything that you're talking about. It's a future of how we're going to be watching television. I got bad news for you. You, based on your age, are always going to subscribe to cable. You're going to have to see the Orioles. You're going to have to see the Terps. Could you imagine not having the Big Ten network? You're going to have to watch whatever teams you're going to want to watch. I can tell you because
does that mean Dish Network? Does that mean literal cable, or does that mean a cable
a cable subscription, a pay TV subscription? So it could be YouTube TV, but you're going to be paying for a bundle.
That's their bet. Their bet is I will always love sports, and because I need to have the Orioles, that would be the. I mean, in 1983 with home team sports, you're right. My dad had to have it. I had to have it. We paid the $12 a month, or at that time, whatever it was, right? Super TV before that, John.
I remember Super TV.
we just lost Ted Patterson recently, and Ted was the voice of Super TV back in the day. And Ted was one of my partners in crime. But I do wonder, that's a hell of a bet they're making, that I'm going to give $100 a month just to have baseball games in the summer when they don't give me spring training. I mean, I'm wondering the arrogance of all of it, sort of the house of cards it's all built on, that where does it fall apart in your mind with the money? At what point is too much? Does someone go in too far?
It doesn't fall apart in terms of the money. It falls apart in terms of the demos. I think people our age are predisposed to getting cable. I mean, when we graduated college, ESPN and MTV, where there are two cooler brands in the world than those two, my kids don't find either of those brands to be
cool.
On
a date with a girl, you come home and you say you didn't have MTV. They were like,
you had to put a video up. I have a 22-year-old son. I have a 20-year-old daughter. They're never paying for cable, or they're never paying for TV.
I feel like I met those kids 5 minutes ago. They were like 7 and 9. We were having Mexican food.
I know, pretty much.
They were like little.
So what the NHL deal did is it kept a lot on traditional television. So in order to watch a Stanley Cup, you're going to have to have a cable subscription. You're watching TV. They're going to have the playoffs all the way through on television. But what they also did was, if you're a hardcore Caps fan, you're almost certainly going to have to subscribe to ESPN Plus or to Hulu, because there are going to be exclusive games on Hulu or ESPN Plus. If you're a displaced Caps fan, if you're a Caps fan who moved from the DMV to, say Philly or New York, you'll have to buy ESPN Plus in order to see the out-of-market Caps games that's out there. So what the NHL did was they're still trying to take a lot of money from you and me by staying on linear TV, but they're looking into the future in terms of trying to just get the younger kids and the younger demos and that are cord cutters or cord nevers, they call them, and just go really hard onto the streaming.
Well, how does cord never become a sports fan then? One of the reasons Nestor's a sports always is because, the Orioles would put a couple home games on Channel 2 for me and my dad once in a while. The games were on the radio, and that was, delicious with Chuck Thompson and Bill O'Donnell back in our childhood, John. But I do wonder where, much like, and I see this with journalism, right? There's a paywall. I'm not going to go read that because there's a paywall. Well, that's how John gets paid. That's how reporters, that's how this works. But the paywall thing then says, well, I just will never read a story in the Wall Street Journal. How about that? You know what I mean? Or whatever that would be, that people move about their day and they steal a highlight from somewhere. If you don't subscribe to HBO, I'm sure there are ways to find Bill Maher or find parts of Bill Maher that, don't feel like you need $120 a month. But that being said, sports needs your children. You know what I mean? Hockey needs to have your children want to find it without, as you said, being a cord neverer.
Yeah, and the thing is, the leagues will tell you that the kids are fans. They just watch it differently than you and I do. I mean, my kids will never ever sit down and watch a 3-hour baseball game ever, but they'll watch every single highlight that comes across Twitter. They'll watch, when Bryce Harper doing whatever he does, and so they know that those fans are out there. They know the fans are following the games. They're just following them differently, and so they're trying to figure out how to take those highlights or take that social media and try to bring them into the fold a little bit more. I mean, so the idea is not even necessarily that the games are too long. It's that kids now, in terms of doing in terms of viewing media, do it in short clips, short snackable clips, they call it. And so they're just trying to figure out how to monetize that in the same way that they monetized you and me back in the mid 80s.
I love how you call it snackable, John, because it feels like, man, I could have a whole bunch of little snacks, but the whole feeling of like a whole baseball game would leave you empty in some way. I don't know. John Ourand is here. He's Sports Business Journal. He is an Oriole fan, as you can tell from his hat, from his well-weathered, feathered hat, and ornithologically correct, I might add, from back in the 1990s, for the Orioles and for the mass and money. And, I sit on the wrong side of the Angelos boys, and when the term of the deal being 30 years coming near an end, and now they're going to pop on 2 years, and John's going to go on the flagship and talk about building, a boat next to a castle. I don't know. Whatever they're going to build there, it always comes back to this for me, John, because I live here, and, I take that picture out my window. I look at that every day, and I look for 18 years I've lived downtown now, and I've seen it go from really vibrant, and not just when the Red Sox and Yankees would bring 40,000 fans here back during the Jeter era or the Pedro Schilling, Big Papi era. I'm talking about just in general, the life and the flow of the city, even before the pandemic, that people, to your point, your kids don't want to go to a baseball game. They're the ones that will be coming down to drink in the bar 3 years from now when the big bar's built, the big Busch Stadium thing that they have, or the thing they have in Philadelphia, the thing that Chinatown kind of is for, the football team or the hockey team and the basketball team. And the thing that Nats Park has built, which is this really, really desirable community. I mean, I remember going down to Nats Park and people like, you don't want to go down there. 15 years later, it's one of the more desirable communities in the country. Camden Yards 30 years ago was built to flood people, including this taxpayer, into this basin of the area, right? I mean, the Orioles are going to need to do that, whether it's John Angelos, Pete Angelos, Lou Angelos, Mama Angelos, some Angelos I've never heard of. At some point, people are going to need to come down, be a part of it, spend money, and feel good about it. And they don't right now, John. I live here. I've built a whole life around baseball, and I've had to swim the other way because there aren't enough people who care about the baseball team for me to have a media company built around it. And they have a media company built around it, and they haven't put their games on this month for me or for your kids who are Nationals fans, probably, right?
Yeah, it's hard because first of all, you can't talk about this without talking about sort of the generation of losing that's happened. What was the percentage that was it Fangraphs or Sports Illustrated?
0.0. We saw the Blutarsky, yes,
the Blutarsky scale. But also when I went to games, when Cal was having the streak back in the mid 90s, and everybody hated the Washingtonians that would come late and leave early. But
were you wine or cheese or both?
I wined with my cheese.
And brought the Washington Post.
Absolutely. But the advent of the Nationals really squeezed the Orioles. You walk through, go to any Orioles game and walk through the parking lot. And I do this every time I go to an O's game. You will never see a license plate from Virginia or DC. It's phenomenal. Back, 25 years ago, the parking lot would be littered with Virginia.
395 would be backed up down to 95 onto the ramp where the casino is now from cars
Absolutely.
coming out,
Yeah.
right? Literally.
Yeah. And so, why isn't it packed? The Nats came in, they got a generation of fans like my kids, and they started winning. And having, and they had superstars in there. They still have superstars in there, and they became sort of an acceptable team to go. Why do I
They
need
sort
to
of make
drive?
fun of you like you're an old Brooklyn Dodger fan or something, like your team doesn't even exist, right? Literally.
There's probably, you can count them on one hand the number of Oriole fans that have remained Oriole fans in DC. I'm one of them. And people are so frustrated in me because I haven't changed my allegiance.
Why haven't you? I mean, like I went to the first Nationals game as a Hoot, right? This is before Angelos threw me out. It's before I did Free the Birds, about a year or two before that. And and they gave away hats the first night. They gave away those Walgreens hats. You know what I'm saying? The special W. And I have a funny picture of me and my wife and Ken and Meg. I was wearing a Padres jacket because it was chilly. It was April. And I said to myself, this is my big chance to divorce Angelos. This is before he threw me out. I was like, I could come to Nats games. And that year, I probably went to 5 or 6 games because going to a game at RFK Stadium felt like something that I was only going to be able to do for a little while.
RFK
right?
was the best.
So I went to more games at RFK the first 2 years than I've gone. I've been to, other than the All-Star game, like literally, I've been to 2 Nationals games in the new stadium since it's been built. How long has it been there? 10, 12 years?
Yeah, at least a decade. Yeah.
I've been to 2 now. I've been to Billy Joel. I mean, I've been to Springsteen. I've been to more concerts there than I've been to Nationals games. And I mean, I don't want to say I don't know why that is. I do know why that is because I wouldn't get in the car and drive an hour and a half down there to watch the Nationals play the Giants or whatever. I've got a baseball team 2 blocks away that I've fallen out with baseball, John, and my name's Aparicio. And they should be very worried about that. They should be very worried that everyone I talk to who's our age, who's not fully bought in on, orange fantasy, literally, that people are just gone. And I don't know whether it's a new edifice or whether it's a new neighborhood or whether it's a sports bar or whether it's like Manny Machado coming back or whether it's Adley Rutschman being Johnny Bench. But at some point when they're ready to come back, there has to be a product. It has to be at a price point they want. They have to feel good about the city, and I work on that every day, right? But they have to feel like they're being marketed. John, they own a network they've been bilking, stealing money from me, 6 months a year for 15 years, and then they don't put the spring training games on. But this is how it spills out that your kids probably are not real fond of the Masson Network, correct?
I don't know if they even know what the Masson Network is, to be honest. It's
really they wouldn't watch a spring training game. They're not that into the team.
They might have it on in the background. They probably wouldn't watch a spring training game. No. I think that's one of the things is like, the RSN business used to be a great business. It's not that good of a business anymore. So like the idea of it just kind of being this ATM where you're taking money is, almost like a 5-year-old way of thinking or 10-year-old.
Sinclair people are finding that out the hard way, right?
Dude, Disney bought those Sinclair RSNs from Fox for over $20 billion. 6 months later, they turned around, they sold it to Sinclair for about $10 billion. And Sinclair was like, what a steal. We got them for, for that steal. They're probably worth $7 billion now. I mean, they keep going down. The value of RSN.
Why is that? Explain that to my audience, because I have been pimping for 15 years that the Angelos family's getting stinky wealthy off of Masson, and they probably did because John probably took a nice salary every year. Off the top, the money never saw anyone but Peter's pockets, which is how the learners have been trying to come and get it for 15 years. Major League Baseball's in. So there was a lot of money, John, and my gut is the Angeloses took it, and now there's literally nothing, and they're opening their pockets, and we're seeing there's nothing in the pockets. It's been quite a trick over the last 15 years how television money and keeping it away from the actual teams has benefited the Angeloses.
Yeah, it's still a good business. They still are able to collect money from cable operators, satellite operators, digital YouTube TVs and whatnot. They're still able to collect a lot of money in ad sales. Live sports is still the only thing that really brings in ad sales revenue on television, but it's not a growth business now. The cable industry is not a growth business. It went like this, and around 2012, 13, that's when like people started figuring out this costs too much. I can buy Netflix, and I don't have to spend $200 on a cable system and watch sort of all these repeats. Cord cutting is happening. Cord cutting is real. So they're getting paid. They're still getting paid by the cable operators. They're just getting paid less now because the cable operators pay based on the number of subscribers. So you get a certain money figure per subscriber per month. When there are less subscribers, it's going to be lower.
And there will always be less subscribers now. That's
now clear. There is. There's a very definite trend line, and it doesn't look like that trend line is going to bounce back up anytime soon.
Well, you and I already had our first fist fight in this conversation when I said, one day I might cut. And you're like, you'll never cut.
You never will. You're a sports fan.
That's what they're counting on, that I'll never cut, right? I mean, I'm one of those guys. They've got me built in that I'm never going to get rid of old Masson back here.
You know what, Nestor? My wife opened up the cable bill. We're Xfinity down here.
How much?
It's over 200 with a phone, TV, internet all wrapped in. And
that's why you look so good on the Wi-Fi.
High speed. She was like, "We're done. We can't do this anymore." And in my head, you mentioned Chuck Thompson. I was like, I can go back to our youth when I just listened on the radio.
Listen to the Orioles lose games on the radio, right?
I know they'll lose this. It'll be 0.0 either way, right?
John, I'll tell you this, dude, and this is in all sincerity, all honesty. Like, if you're trying to talk me into keeping cable based on I won't have Orioles games, that's a tough sell, bro. You know what I mean? Like, because I'm not watching a whole lot of them. I haven't watched. They've started to drift. Nobody ever comes up to me wanting to talk about much. The 60-game season last year was weird. Baseball's got, it's crossed the bear, right? I mean, all the way around, from how the game looks and the shifts and the home runs and the strikeouts and management and competitive imbalance. That's tremendous. I mean, baseball's challenged right now in a way that I don't know who the smart people are. You know what I mean? Like, I'd love to follow the great minds of baseball and figure out where the business is going. I know where the game's going. The game's going to a bunch of nerds that have made the game not nearly as much fun for old guys like you and me. That's sort of like hit and run and steals and, various strategies that literally they're gone too. I mean, baseball has changed forever.
Here's why you're not going to cut the cord. It has almost nothing to do with the Orioles. Well, it has a little bit to do with the Orioles, but I know you're a big Caps fan. You can't watch any Caps without cable. I know that you're a big Maryland fan. You can't watch Maryland football. Maryland football is going to be good too, by the way, coming up for the next couple of years.
Ron Vanderlinden told me that 25 years ago.
I still have faith, man. I'm a homer.
I should have called out Duffner because Duffner's still my friend. So I love Duffner. So
Duffner was great. He came in and just started throwing the ball all around. But you can't get Maryland football or basketball. For me, I love watching the Wizards. I can't get the Wizards, and like all of that taken together, you're not going to be able to watch a Ravens game if it's on, on ESPN. Maybe actually, it'll be on in the local markets. That's not true, but there are enough other sports there that'll keep you tethered to where it's like, all right, yeah, I do want to see Alex Ovechkin in his last couple of seasons.
John Ourand is here. He is from Sports Business Journal. He is an Oriole fan, a Caps fan, a Wizards fan, a Maryland fan. A burgundy and gold former. I'm not allowed to call them by their name anymore, right? The football season's upon us, and the draft, the money. Give me an overview of the NFL, big picture money, and what the pandemic didn't do to them. I mean, obviously costing them some hot dogs last year and, some ticket sales or whatever. But the NFL is the one league that managed to play all the way through, collect all the TV money, collected most of the money, quite frankly, and now set up that baseball had it was Eddie Feigner last year, as I said to most people. Obviously, hockey and basketball moved around. Golf was playing, Masters with no azaleas, for crying out loud. Football emerges as the gorilla, and I still think 5 years from now will be the gorilla, CTE aside. But other than that, it feels to me like the NFL still continues to be a complete runaway train when it comes to money, and quarterbacks getting $40 million.
Nestor, part of that is a function of timing. The NFL season started in the fall. The pandemic first hit in the spring when nobody knew what was going on. So they weren't one of the leagues that had to shut down to sort of determine what happened. But boy, the NFL, what a successful season. I mean, in the pandemic, of course, they'd rather have fans in the stands. They'd rather be selling hot dogs and beers, to those fans and collecting the parking fees. But, from the doing the draft without delay, they didn't even push the draft back by a week, and they were able to get cameras in all these players' homes, and it was just a feat, a phenomenal feat what they did with the draft. Starting free agency on time. I guess they started training camp a little bit late, but they were able to conduct an entire 16-game season. And the only delay was, having a couple of teams not play on their exact date, but they played a couple days afterwards.
Well, they conducted business as we would know it, right? In
Totally.
the way that Walmart conducted business during, during this, and small businesses didn't. A lot of people did not conduct business last year. The NFL, they barely blinked, literally.
Barely blinked. So you can take a look. Ratings were down about 7% regular season. We all saw what the Super Bowl number was, and that was pretty poor, pretty low. But boy, they got through it. The sport is so healthy that you're going to see Fox, CBS, and NBC at least double on an average annual basis what they're paying for media rights. You're going to see ESPN pay a healthy increase as well. You're going to see Amazon come in and pay a lot to get that Thursday night game. So the media rights situation for them just improved tremendously. They have. And
this is how Dak Prescott's getting $40 million from Jerry Jones, right? During a year when we're hearing from press conferences, we don't even know the cap number, right? We're hearing that, and the owners don't really care where the cap number is right now. They know the pie's about to grow, just the way Roger told them it was going to grow 10 years ago, right?
And I think they also have, as opposed to baseball, which you just mentioned, they feel like they have this pent-up demand of people that have gotten locked out of going to watch live football games that are going to want to come out and just be a part of a community and cheer for whatever teams that are out there. So they think ticket sales are going to be up. They think in-venue sponsorships are going to be up. They think the sponsorships around television and everything are going to stay as strong as they have been. The NFL went into the pandemic as the biggest, most powerful league in the United States by far, and it came out in an even stronger position.
The NBA, where's that? I mean, I know you and Deitch and a whole bunch of my media guys that I follow to get information, sort of dig at the political side of Black Lives Matter and where the NBA went last year in China. The NBA has leaned far. The NBA wasn't going to bench Colin Kaepernick. That happened in the NFL, that he got blackballed, let alone whatever will happen in baseball. But the NBA continues to sort of chirp along at a global pace that is above and beyond anything folks down in Chinatown would know watching the Wizards, like yourself, right? Like, there's just a lot of money in the NBA, and it's a good business right now, quietly during a plague, right?
A lot of losing in Chinatown.
Yeah.
But the NBA has a few more challenges. The TV ratings for the NBA have been off pretty significantly, and there's a fear that a lot of that political a lot of those political stances that they have taken kept a lot of casual fans from wanting to sample a little bit more. I mean,
well, that's part of the NFL number being down too, right? Is that, well, people stop watching because they're politically pissed. I don't necessarily believe that. But
I don't believe it. Well, I think when it comes to TV ratings, there are always 20 reasons, and all of them are somewhat legit. And I think that is a legit reason. I don't think it's the main reason, but I think that there's a legit reason for it. But I do know that the numbers are down. It's something that the NBA has to be concerned about, and it's something that the NBA it almost reminds me of, everybody wants to watch LeBron. what comes after him. I'm a basketball fan, so I think there's
Well,
a
you and
lot
I asked
after
that when
him.
Jordan left, right? What
Exactly.
do you do when Jordan leaves? What do you do when
And
Gretzky leaves, right?
and there was a pall after when Jordan left. I mean, the NBA sort of slid downhill for a little bit. That was Malice in the Palace happened after Jordan left. I mean, that was the bad days of the NBA, and they rebounded from that. And so they have to be prepared for having these sort of bankable stars, Steph Curry, LeBron James, leaving the league and figuring out how to move forward without them.
John Ourand is here, Sports Business Journal. I really appreciate you spending some time with us. I know we've been chasing each other for quite some time. Pandemic-wise, everything going okay for you? I mean, do you feel like you're going to get to a Nats game this summer and to an Orioles game? I mean, the sports fan in you is the heart beating to get out and get some fresh air and a beer?
I have a tradition with a couple of the only other couple Oriole fans that I grew up with is we always go to the second Orioles game.
I love that.
And the bunting's still up, and there's always like 8,000 people in
and
the
it's cold
stands.
as hell. My dad always took me to that game every year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. You get the knit hat on. I put my Orioles starter jacket on from 1983. And head up there. And I'm hoping to be able to do that. So I guess Camden Yards is going to be, I think, 50% capacity. Is that right?
Yeah, which means anybody can come.
Yeah, exactly. So that second game, I'll still be one of 8,000 there.
Something magic happens. John Ourand joining us here, Sports Business Journal. Follow his work. Follow him out on Twitter. Tens of thousands do because they like it. By the way, you knocked it out of the park with the big journalistic scoop 2 weeks ago. So I want to give you a nod out on that. And I hope you get the next 5 scoops. What's the next big scoop? What's the next thing that's going to happen? Is it Olympic relay? I don't know. Like from a money television media standpoint.
Well, the news has already come out, but baseball has a rights deal that's coming up. They haven't announced their deal with the ESPN, and ESPN walked away from sort of a lot of its regular season package. They're going to keep Sunday night baseball, and so who comes in, swoops in, and gets that, I think is going to be particularly interesting. And we talked about the hockey deal with ESPN, but there still is a big piece of the hockey deal that's still out there, and NBC and Fox are circling, trying to get it. And I think what happens there is going to be really telling for the future of the business.
Well, I'll be following you as always. And that second Orioles game, I guess that's April the 9th or 10th, whatever that'll be, Red Sox. I'm hoping for 72 and sunny for you when you come back.
Oh, no, it's got to be 40. You're going to be freezing sitting there.
It's funny you bring this up because I had all my ticket stubs here recently, and I'm actually having Pete Williams on. We're going to talk about old baseball cards and some stuff this week as well because we really don't have much to talk about when it comes to the 2021 Orioles. Like, we could talk Adley Rutschman or whatever. They're going to lose a lot. It's not going to be interesting. But when Hank Aaron died, I had a ticket stub from 1976 when my dad took me out to see Hank Aaron play, and I've had this ticket stub all these years. And the internet allowed me to look up the date, and it turned out they didn't play the Brewers that day. They played the Indians on the wrong stub. But I found the stub from like April the 6th, 1983. And I looked at it, and I'm like, definitely not opening day. My dad would never have gone to opening day. It had to have been the second game. It was game 2, crowd of 7,916, you know what I mean? 38 degrees, playing the Royals. It was all that. But all those old ticket stubs, man, that, like seeing that hat on your head, it's tough. I got all these old Evening Sun newspapers that Robbie says, newspapers aren't worth anything. I'm like, but how do I throw it away? How do I throw away my 1979 ALCS News American? How do I do that?
No, I still have all of them from every postseason win in 1983. I have every Washington Post from that. I'll never give it up. My kids will throw it away after.
Boswell did a nice job of covering the Orioles. Tell him I miss Boswell down there. John, I love you. Appreciate you, bro. Thanks for coming on.
Hey, thanks for the invite, man.
John Ourand, he is from Sports Business Journal, covers all the sports, all the money around all the sports, and all the media deals around the money around the sports, which is why we keep him in our side pocket around here and have him around. We love intelligent guests. We are sponsored now by Wise Supermarkets, so we are calling them Wise Conversations. You can find them all out at Baltimore Positive, including in our audio repository. All of our WNST programming brought to you by our friends at Cole Roofing. I got the mug here with the Royal Farms coffee in the mug. Cole Roofing and Gordian Energy. Billy will be here a little later on in the week. We'll be discussing whether we're going to put Old Bay or deep dark chocolate on those cicadas as they come out next month. We are WNST.net, AM 1570 Towson, Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore positive.